We bloody love a good villain, and part of what makes our favourite baddies so great are their various maniacal schemes. Whether they're planning to take over the world or simply trying to get revenge against a foe for some slight, either real or imagined, there's nothing more fun than a nefarious plot. Only not all video game villains think things through properly, so some come up with plans that have more holes than a block of Swiss cheese, and it's these that we're looking at for today's list. Whether their overall aims are ridiculous or it's just their methods that are dubious, if they're a wrong'un in a video game who couldn't organise a booze up in a brewery, they're more than welcome here. Naturally, we'll be getting into major plot points, so a spoiler warning is in effect for all of the games you see on screen. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 video game villains with the stupidest plans. Number 10. Yona, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It's a hard fact of life that occasionally love hurts. One minute you'll be head over heels for someone, and the next they've dumped you for somebody else. Most people in this situation would pour themselves a few glasses of wine, inhale several tubs of Ben & Jerry's, and then move on with their lives. Some crying too, probably. Not The Witcher 3's Yona, though. She'd much rather mess with curses and try to get her lover back using blackmail. Whilst in Randvague, players can pick up a secondary quest called The Nithing, in which they must figure out who has laid a curse upon a man named Lothar. After some digging, our boy Geralt finds that the herbalist Yona has planted the curse because Lothar left her for another woman, and she will only lift it, thus saving Lothar's son, if he returns to her and denounces his wife and child. Players can opt to have Geralt turn the curse on Yona, but if they opt instead to spare her, then Lothar will go back to her. Only she's fallen into the classic badly worded curse trap, and as Lothar points out, he's only agreed to be with her, not to love her. See, this is what you get for cursing people and forcing them to go out with you against your will. Lesson learned. Number 9. Ulduin, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, don't get us wrong, we understand that Ulduin, the dragon antagonist from 2011's The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, probably isn't the sort of villain that plans his maneuvers extensively. After all, when you're a large winged lizard, it's probably difficult to hold a pen. However, after his snafu with the Dragonborn, he probably should think about hiring someone to bounce his ideas off at the very least. Throughout Skyrim, the player character explores the titular region of Tamriel and embarks on a number of ventures that will bring them to their ultimate goal, killing Ulduin, the dragon who is prophesied to bring about the end of the world. Their adventure begins just as they're about to face execution, at which point Ulduin swoops down and begins setting things on fire with reckless abandon, having sensed the presence of the Dragonborn, a warrior who can absorb the souls of dead dragons to learn shouts in the area. Here's the kicker though, if Ulduin hadn't attacked the prisoners at the beginning of the game, then the Dragonborn would have been executed and all of his problems would have been solved. It turns out that sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all. Number 8. Vars, Far Cry 3. How hard is it to kill a man? I'm not talking from a philosophical standpoint here, I mean physically, how difficult is it to end someone's life? The answer, especially if you have weapons at your disposal, is not very, and yet Vars Montenegro of Far Cry 3 fame seems to have some serious trouble with it. Let's have a look at why, shall we? Now, in the beginning, it isn't Vars's plan to kill protagonist Jason, no, not that one, but rather to sell him and his friends into slavery. When it turns out that they're not okay with that though, he sets out to kill them instead. Only he's really bad at it, which for a man of his repute is absolutely ridiculous. Despite having Jason in captivity, he literally allows him to escape, and even when Vars gets a hold of him again later in the game, his efforts to kill the man, which include shooting him in the chest, trying to drown him, and monologuing him to death, utterly fail. What's more is that in their final showdown, Vars opts to use a knife instead of a gun. All I'm saying is that a swift bullet to the head would have solved all of his Jason problems. I can only assume that his heart wasn't really in it. Number 7. Zinyak, Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4 is a pretty bonkers game, and one whose plot starts to fall apart at the seams if you think about it too hard. Still, we're in the business of overthinking trivial things, and it's for this reason that we must point out and laugh at antagonist Zinyak for being an absolute ninny. The game is set several years after Saints Row III, by which point player character The Boss has become President of the United States of America and has instated a number of the Saints as members of his cabinet. Things quickly go south, however, when aliens invade Earth, kidnapping the Boss and their cronies in the process and destroy the planet. It later transpires that Saints member Johnny Gat, who was thought to be dead, had actually been kidnapped by the Zin invaders several years prior, as he was the only one who could thwart the aliens' plans and is being kept in a simulation. He's summarily freed by the boss and later helps to bring about the Zin's downfall. Now perhaps I'm missing something, but wouldn't it have been far smarter on Zinniak's part to actually kill Gat rather than sticking him into a computer program? You know, since if he's dead there is absolutely zero risk of him being broken out and doing any plan thwarting. You know, maybe keep that in mind for next time. Number 6. Abby, The Last of Us Part 2. We absolutely do not condone murder here at Team TripleJump, but if we had a list of homicide do's and don'ts, then number 1 on that list would probably be don't leave any witnesses. Clearly, Abby from The Last of Us Part 2 must have taken one look at our list before deciding to ignore the most important part. Indeed, around 2 hours into the game, Abby makes the decision to beat The Last of Us protagonist Joel to death with a golf club. She does so before other protagonist Ellie's very eyes as revenge for him murdering her father, the Firefly surgeon who was set to operate on Ellie at the end of the previous game. She's obviously been seeking vengeance for a while, and so you'd think that she and the rest of her group would have a plan for if Abby actually got her hands on Joel, and that plan would involve eliminating anyone who might seek retribution for his death. Except for reasons best known to themselves, they let Ellie go. She immediately sets her sights on retaliation, and there we have the central conflict of the game. As I said, we don't condone murder, but Abby's best bet really would have been offing Ellie when she had the chance. Number 5. Hugo Strange, Batman Arkham City. If you were super evil and got put in charge of a city's correctional facilities but felt the best way to deal with the criminals and the criminally insane was just to kill them, would you A. corral them somewhere in the already existing prison/asylum and just shoot them all, or 2. cordon off an entire area of a city, stick the prisoners in there with Batman and then launch missiles at them? If you said B, then congratulations, you're as big of an idiot as Batman Arkham City's Hugo Strange. Arkham City sees Bruce Wayne thrown into the titular super prison as punishment for opposing it before donning the Batsuit and attempting to get to the bottom of Warden Hugo Strange's nefarious schemes, and in particular, the one codenamed Protocol 10. Several goons and lunatic villains later, it transpires that Protocol 10 is an order to kill all of the inmates of Arkham City via means of missile strike. Only, why would you go to the trouble of spending billions and fencing off several districts of Gotham if all you wanted to do was kill a bunch of prisoners? You've got them rounded up in Arkham and Blackgate, so it would already be like shooting fish in a barrel. I get that supervillains got a supervillain, but come on, think of the taxpayer. Number 4. Albert Wesker, Resident Evil 5. There's an old saying that warns of trying to have one's cake and eat it at the same time, and the takeaway is that usually things won't end well. It would seem that Albert Wesker of Resident Evil fame is not familiar with such advice. Resident Evil 5 sees Chris Redfield of the BSAA and his chums heading out to West Africa to investigate a bioorganic weapon threat. Once there, they encounter their old pal, Albert Wesker, who has been plotting with the CEO of Tricell, the company that funds the BSAA, to launch missiles filled with the deadly Ouroboros virus all over the world. Not good. Rather than just doing this, however, it transpires that Wesker has also been selling his bioorganic weapons to terrorists in order to make more of that sweet, sweet moolah. Just don't think too hard about how useful money will be when the whole human race has been wiped out. I can assure you that Wesker has not. Had he just focused on the missile firing and the destruction of humanity, Wesker would have probably gotten away with it, but his little side hustle attracted the attention of those pesky kids, the BSAA, and he just wound up getting dropped into a volcano. Whoops. Number 3. Vader, Star Wars The Force Unleashed. There's something to be said for keeping things simple. After all, the more straightforward your plans are, the less there is to go wrong. Maybe someone should relay this advice to all the villains of the gaming world, because a lot of the time it feels like they make their most despicable schemes complicated for the sake of it. Take Darth Vader in Star Wars The Force Unleashed, for example. He wants to rule the Empire, but he can't do that without dispatching his master, Darth Sidious, aka the Emperor. Cool? That's nothing a little murder won't fix. Does he simply kill Sidious in his sleep, as Sidious himself did to his former master? Of course, he bloody well doesn't. He concocts one of the most ridiculous plots in all of Star Wars history, and that is saying something. Indeed, Vader's plan entails training an apprentice, making Sidious think said apprentice is dead, then having them foster a rebellion among enemies of the Empire so that Sidious will be distracted enough for the overthrowing to commence. Sure, it makes for a fun video game doing it that way, but it would have been much easier for Vader to claim the Empire as his own if it just smothered Sidious with a pillow. Never mind. Number 2. The Elusive Man, Mass Effect series. The elusive man, real name Jack Harper, is a villain that fails because he ignores the golden rule of, well, everything, really. Never underestimate your opponent. He first appears in Mass Effect 2 as the leader of Cerberus, the paramilitary organization that is able to bring Commander Shepard back to life. He's no saint though, and over the course of Mass Effect 2 and 3 he devises a number of plans that contribute to his ultimate goal, to gain control of the Reapers, the main antagonists of the series that awaken every few millennia and then bop around the galaxy indoctrinating various species and destroying the most advanced civilizations. This goes about as well as you'd expect, really. Ultimately, Shepard finds the elusive man aboard the Citadel, where it becomes clear that, rather than taking control of the Reapers have taken control of him. Depending on whether or not Shepard has infuriated the elusive man, the commander can convince him that he is under the Reapers' control or not, but either way, the outcome is the same: a lead salad. Oh well, you know what they say, if you can't beat him, join him, and then get shot. That's how the saying goes, right? Number 1. Union Aerospace Corporation. Doom. If there's one place that you probably don't want to go poking around and messing with, it's hell. After all, according to those who believe in such a thing, hell is the absolute worst place imaginable and is populated with all sorts of demonic entities that would love nothing more than to use your spleen as a sock puppet. Still, if there's an opportunity for money to be made, then we all know that corporations will seize it with both hands. Consequences be damned. 2016's Doom takes place in the year 2149, by which time Earth has gotten itself into something of a pickle energy-wise. Not to worry though, because the Union Aerospace Corporation has a plan to resolve the issue and presumably make heaps of cash in doing so. Spoiler alert, they're not heavily investing in wind turbines. No, the Union Aerospace Corporation, in their infinite wisdom, decides to plunder hell for its resources because there's absolutely no way in the heck that anything could go wrong. Just kidding, it goes very wrong and their facility on Mars ends up overrun with demons. Oh, thankfully everyone's favourite space marine, Doom Guy, is on hand to sort out the whole sorry mess. But perhaps if a bit more thought had been put into the whole nicking stuff from hell plan, he wouldn't have had to bother.